I wanted to record a little bit here, a video that when you have something that's just kind of festering in your mind and all, and something that's actually a good thing, though, is you just need to feel like you need to talk about it a bit to sort of organize your thoughts or really wrap your mind around why you enjoyed a certain something. So I recently beat the game Clair Obscur Expedition 33. Now I beat it. I didn't do a lot of the side content stuff and all, as this I wanted to see what happened in the story, and so I ended up just once I got to a certain point, I was like, all right, I'm just going to beeline it right towards the end. So I should have it in the title of this video, but so there's going to be some spoilers. So not all spoilers, but some spoilers. And what I mean by that is I'm going to talk about the game. I'm going to talk about as openly as I can for what I understand of what happened and all that, because I'm still trying to process some of the story events that happened. So I'm in the midst of like watching a bunch of reviews and spoilers and discussions about the game and all that as I'm trying to kind of, again, right, organize my thoughts on everything. But there will be some things that I definitely wanted to talk about as to why I ultimately ended up really appreciating this game. And just to kind of start off, and so I'll probably split up this video here in a few segments. Right now, I'm just doing this on my lunch at work, and then I'll probably talk about the rest on my drive home. But when so again, there, when you play something, I mean, this is even good of a good movie or a good book, but when you experience something and all that just really kind of ends up getting its claws into you, where you start thinking about a lot of different things and all. And one of the reasons why this has me so excited recently is that my original thought when I beat this game, and I talked a little bit about before on my recent podcast here, is I liked the game initially early on. I really enjoyed it, actually. I liked the setup to it and all. But then eventually, the middle part, it's not horrible, but it was kind of losing me a bit. It's just far as this where the story was going and all. I don't know. It seemed like it was kind of becoming more of what is it, like a MacGuffin quest and all, where you're just looking for things and all, but nothing really that was really hooking you on the story, right? Now, some spoilers again, right? Like I said, and so the scene where Gustav dies, that was the way it was set up and everything. That was impactful, right? But it didn't really quite hit me, that hard at first. And then you go through the section after that, you get Verso and all, and that's cool and all. But again, it wasn't quite really sticking with me. Well, early last week, I ended up just saying, you know what, I'm just going to beat the game. I just wanted to I was like, I feel like I like it. I really like it enough to the point where I wanted to beat it. So I just sort of went straight to beat the game, and I ended up doing that. So, like I said, I missed out on a lot of side stuff though. And the last stretch of the game, I really enjoyed. And so, like the last two, like the last main boss fights, right? So I'll say the Paintress. So obviously you're going to this island where there's like this monolith there where you're seeing the big number painted on, right? To fight that boss. And so that stretch from what you think is the last boss, when you first fight the Paintress, when you're just kind of attacking her feet at first, but that whole section there and all was pretty cool. And then when you actually fight the Paintress and then you think it's the ending, so that boss fight is really cool. And then ultimately at the very end when you end up fighting Rednor. Those fights right there were really amazing. It definitely reminded me back of like Final Fantasy and a lot of the grandiose fights that you have in those games, where the epicness of them, the setting, how everything that built up right to that fight, very grandiose, or not only Final Fantasy games and all, but like in a lot of JRPGs where you're taking on like some kind of an entity, right, and all that seems very godlike, and the music and all that. The music absolutely is amazing. So all of that I thought was really cool, right? And then the ending happens and all, and then especially the two choices between Mael and Verso. I ended up choosing the Mael version, the ending, which I mean, there seems to be a lot of controversy with this. Afterwards, when I kind of looked up a little bit about it and all, it seems to be, I guess, the bad ending, even though they're both kind of bad. But anyway, ultimately, I still liked it, and I haven't seen the Verso ending yet and all, but that scene though between where Mael and Verso were talking, and he says something like, "You need to unpaint me" or something. I can't live this life, and all the acting in that scene. My gosh, it's truly something else. Both of them, between Ben Starr and Jennifer English, amazing performances. Um, actually probably one of my more favorite dramatic acting scenes in a video game. Not quite to like what Joel and Sarah, at the beginning of The Last of Us was, but I mean it's kind of up there though. So just really amazing. Where I really ended up appreciating this game more though, like I said, is I've been sort of just looking up a bunch of stuff on it and everything, is the music. Now, the music originally, when I first listened to it, I mean, the music is excellent. It's a very beautifully orchestrated score that Lorian, I forgot his last name, but the way this guy he did the music, it's really well done. Like if you were to listen to it on its own, it sounds, it's a really nice sounding music. But when I was first playing the game, there were some stretches in the game where I'm hearing the music and all. I was like, yeah, it sounds nice. It seemed a little out of place though from being in a video game, if that makes any sense. But then I ended up listening to some of I got to some of the bosses. So the one under that flying water section, and then that one boss on that bridge that attacks you. I think his name was like Dueliste or something like that. He's got the two swords. Those two right there, when I listened to the music on that, and I was like, okay, this is actually really cool. And so then I started appreciating the music even more, and also as a video game soundtrack. So anyway, so I beat the game and all, and like I said, that was still kind of my overall thoughts, and it still kind of is to the overall game itself. Where the beginning is really good, the middle part of it, no, but then the last stretch is really good. But what really has started hooking me on this game, and that was just happened kind of like yesterday. I was watching some lore videos on it and all, and then I came across, so a bit of spoilers here and all. Now, this is something that I haven't personally done in the game, but it's where you come across a secret boss named Simon, and supposedly he's like a secret boss and the hardest character in the game. Well, I listened to the song that this section has, when you're fighting this boss, and then the fact that the character was very inspired. I mean, I can just tell. I haven't really actually confirmed that from what I've read, but just the look of the character and all, very much inspired from like Berserk, right? I mean, the character, the sword that he has and all, I mean, that definitely looks like Berserk. Kind of Sephiroth a little bit too with the white hair, but then in the background there's like this thing that looks like an eclipse. I was like, holy shit, that's Berserk right there, right? And anything that references Berserk or seems to anyway, I don't know for sure if they got an inspiration from that. You have my attention, right? I'm just because Berserk is another story for me, right? That I'm a huge fan of that. And I started listening to the music, which has an amazing song called "We Lost." And so then, as I started reading up a bit on the lore of this character and all, and how he was part of the Expedition Zero and all that, and so just kind of, and then I went down a rabbit hole a bit where it started. I started learning some things that kind of started filling in the gaps of some important story moments that isn't completely spelled out for you, but during that middle stretch of the game. So, for example, what Esquire and Monaco are all about, right? That how they're tied to Verso, and I thought that was, So then I was like, oh, wait a minute, maybe there's a lot that I really missed. So it might be like one of those movies, like well, I mean, I like The Sixth Sense a lot when I first watched it, but when you rewatch that movie again, and it's like, oh, wait a minute, this connects to this, and this connects to this, and then you have a bit more of appreciation of it. That's kind of what I'm feeling with this game here, and so I'm going to leave it right there for now. I'm going to save some other thoughts as far as like how much it's really been inspiring my own creativity and why I just really enjoyed this medium of video games so much, because it's been a while since something has inspired me to this extent where I want to start trying to be creative again and all that. But I'll save that here for when I'm driving back home. All right. Sorry if this video comes out a little dark. It's getting kind of dark out here and all, and I don't necessarily have like lighting equipment or anything in my car. But yeah, so like I was saying earlier, it's been a while since I've been inspired by something, like by some piece of art of some sort. And I miss that because I feel like, and maybe it's just because I'm getting older, so some of the things that, what would normally inspire me and all, it's just, it's a different culture now, different society now and all the things that used to inspire me a lot. And so maybe that's why. But I just feel like I've missed out, or I've been missing a lot of, whether if it's games or movies or anything that just told something really impactful that made you feel something and all. And because it almost seemed like we were just getting several things just every year, at least to some extent. And again, this is just all across any entertainment medium. Because I feel that it's almost like I feel like the powerful expression of art is being is missing nowadays, and that could be a combination of what people are into now, like what people are inspired by and all, or ultimately what sells, right? Like what is out there, I mean, when you look at a lot of the content that's out there as far as for what people are consuming when it comes to entertainment, a lot of it is, it's not like art or movies or the games all that we of how we used to think about it. A lot of people don't even read anymore, and so I feel like that's had an effect on just society overall. And again, I'm getting a little off track here a bit, but I say that because when I played this game, Clair Obscur, and I'm really thinking about it as far as what it's trying to tell and everything, and I think it's a bit of a coincidence, or maybe not, that the game is very much like a living work of art, right? And all, where the concept of it is that there's painters, right, and writers as far as some of the protagonists or antagonists in the game, and all, and it's and because it has that theme and all, right, is why I think it's interesting that it took something like this and all to kind of bring that inspiration back in me. Because what I love about it is that when I can play something or see something or hear something and all, that brings out the creativity in me. After playing this game and really thinking about it and all, and especially listening to the music, it's kind of sparked that interest again. So I used to like to write a lot and draw a lot and all. I was never really good at either or, but I have messed around with it some and all, and it used to bring me a lot of peace and kind of center my mind a bit, where I can artistically express myself in a certain way, right? But whether it was something I was writing or drawing and all that. And so for writing, for example, I've had this story that I've had in the back of my mind for, I mean, years. I mean, pretty much since I was a kid, and then it just sort of kind of kept evolving, and all as the years went on. And I mean, I did get to the point where I even finished a screenplay about it, and it's a very fantasy-based story and all. And but it was just something that really sparked my imagination based off of a lot of different things that I was seeing and playing at the throughout my years, right? From movies to games and all. And so it's inspired by a lot of that stuff. I try to make it my own thing though and all, right, but definitely it was inspired by a lot of the things that I grew up with. And so a part of me thinks, I was like, well, maybe I'm just getting older, and all, and I'm just not as inspired, right, by things. But I don't think that's the case. I think a lot of it is just there just hasn't been really a whole lot out there that I can say that yes, this is something that really brings that creativity out in me. And this game finally did it. So, for example, like here I am playing something that finally did it and all. And so there is, so the capacity is still there, right, and all, for something to not only me, right, but just to inspire people and all. And I just feel that a lot of times things have either gotten very corporatized, I guess, right, where we're not creating things for the benefit of one's passion, but more so for something that a company has pinned down on what will make money. And because I feel like there's two different things. Because, like, for example, someone can post videos that, and again, I'm not against anybody creating whatever content they want to make, because hell, here I am, right, trying to do this. But a lot of it is just very, very like cheap fast food, right? Um, where we used to have like full gourmet meals before, when it comes to things that felt like a labor of love, something that felt very inspired, right? Because I think you can tell when you watch something or play something or read something and all that, when you hear it, you see it, you engage in it and all that, it's like, yes, I feel what this person was trying to put out, as whatever inspired them, and you get a sense of that, right, and all. Like, for example, with this game here, so little bit that I understand of the story. So I'm kind of talking all over the place here when I'm trying to explain the plot and all as much as I can, because there's a lot that I don't quite understand and all. But basically, from what what I do get is that you are stuck in this painting. And well, when I say you, let's say from the perspective of Verso, one of the main characters in it, you're stuck in this painting, but you want to be freed. You freed from it because you've had a tragedy in your family, and so now, because of someone else's wishes, you are stuck in this world where you're not really real, but you know that you're not real. And after years and years of suffering, you just sort of you want it to end. And that's why I feel like that scene where he tells her Verso to Mael, where he said, "Just I don't want this life." It was very powerful for me. Well, when I'm seeing that and and hearing that and all, it's almost like when you're trying to break out of a sense of depression, or when you're trying to get out of something that's a very difficult spot in your life and all. It's almost like I don't want this anymore. I want to be freed from it and all. Not necessarily to unalive, but just where you just want to be just done with whatever it is that is affecting you. And that and so then that starts a thought process in your mind and all, right, on how you can understand that, how you can relate to that. And so art a lot of times can give you like a sense of place, like give you a sense of home where otherwise you might not have it. And that is why I always feel, and a lot of times that can only be accomplished, some kind of art like this, can only be accomplished really by just an actual human being that is caring for what they're putting out there into the world. Anything that I've ever done with it's like kind of been like art related and all, like I said, I've never had any major success or anything, but it's been something that I feel like I wanted to really tell something or express myself in a certain way that someone else could relate to, because it was coming from a very human place. And we've lost a lot of that nowadays and all. And, again, a lot of it could be because of AI or just, things getting very corporatized and all. And it's unfortunate, but that's what this game, it led me to think about a lot of this kind of stuff, because I seriously, and I'm not saying that this game, so two things. I'm not saying that this game is the best thing since sliced bread, right? Because I know a lot of people out there are really, really highly praising this. And I'm also not saying that praise isn't warranted. I'm also not saying that the success of this game has been because people have been longing for this kind of stuff, like everything that I'm talking about. I don't think it's that either. Also, I mean, I think it's a very good product on its own, right? It had it come out in another year where there was another year where there was when we were getting more quality titles like this, and I still feel like it would stand on tall amongst the other products like that. But it's I miss that feeling, basically, I guess is what I'm getting at. And I feel like I've lost a lot of that inspiration a lot to want to create, because we just don't get things like this anymore as much. So I know it sounds a little corny and all, but that's really what this game brought out in me, and I'm grateful for that. I'm grateful that I went through something like this, and I'll finally give it a chance, even with my nitpicks that I have on it and all. But just basically to kind of talk a little bit about the story more and all. So again, I'm just kind of talking through this. When I'm playing the game and all, I mean, I'm engaged in it and everything and all. But sometimes when you're older, you have a lot of things on your mind, and so you always can't be 100% engaged in a game or a movie and all that, right? Where you're trying to play something and all, but then you got bills on your mind, or other things and all, that it just kind of work and all. Even though you're playing it and all, but it's not 100% sitting there in your mind, just because again you're thinking of other stuff. But from what I understand, so some of the things that the complaint. So let's see if I can talk my way through what I understand of like the complaint that I had of the middle section of the game. So a lot of it just kind of felt like, okay, so Gustav got killed. Now you're Verso. Okay, cool. Now we're going to find this friend of his. Okay, so you get this friend. It's a pretty cool character. But then now we're going to, oh shit, I forgot what happened after that. But ultimately, you end up going to fight these axions so that you can, or axons so that you can get these, I forgot what they were, items, but ultimately to make yourself a weapon so that you can crack the barrier to get to where the paintress is at. Okay. And all along the way, there's good dialogue. You know, you're having good interaction with your party members and all that. But nothing ever seemed like really. I mean, outside of like the Axon fights were pretty cool and all, but I don't know. There was just a bit of something that just there was. I guess maybe it was like a sense of urgency and all that. The setup really did really well at first, and then the ending part of it does really well. But this middle stretch seemed to kind of lack it. But I think we're maybe missing some things and all is not really catching on to some of the things that we're talking about. So, for example, like Esquire and Monaco, I think is his name. Apparently, they were like childhood creations of Verso, something like that. Am I wrong on that? I think I caught something of that there afterwards. I'm like, oh, wait a minute. You know, that was, you know, they're from his imagination, something to that effect. Skeel, I think is her name, Seal or Skeel. I forgot her name, but you know, I basically stuck with Verso, Mael, and Lune at first, or you know, as the game went on, and you know, in the first few hours with Gustav, and there were just the characters that I felt were a bit fleshed out. But like Seal, I think, or Skeel, I don't know if I'm pronouncing her name right, but I didn't think too highly of her at first. But then at the end, they were talking about her husband and how he had passed, and so then she's wishing to be back with him, and she was washed ashore, and then like Esquire saved her or something like that, and I was like, okay, apparently, you know, and I saw this on a video that I was watching, and I was like, apparently I missed all that, you know, because that would bring more depth to that character that I thought was otherwise somewhat bland. I mean, she was well acted and everything. It's just, you know, I guess I was like, I don't really. I mean, I get it. She's part of your expedition and all, and I know not all the party members need to have a very engaging backstory, but apparently I missed a lot of stuff there, right? And that would flesh out her character more. So that's why I feel like I need to play this game again to catch a lot of those references again. But yeah, the combat though is just was really, it does get a little tiring after a while trying to parry all these attacks and dodge and all that. It was a lot of fun though too. Also, I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a fun time with it. So it's, if anything, it's like I want to keep going back to the game to just engage in more battles. Really, I don't know. I might try to take on that Simon guy, that secret boss character. I just want to, if anything, just to see him. I just want to hear the song and play the character. Apparently, he has this attack that'll mess you up pretty bad. And if you can parry all the attacks on it and all, you're like, you know, S tier level game player. But yeah, I mean, but if anything, I guess that's my main thing, right? And all that I'm taking away from this experience, having played it, is that, like I said, it is an experience. It's a beautiful experience, right? To go to, you know, play something like this, and it has me inspired in a lot of ways, right? Where I do want to start. Maybe I'll try to finish off that story that I wrote some years ago and all, and you know, it makes you reflect on life in a way where we can understand that life is hard, life is difficult, but when we see it through the eyes of someone else's artistic expression, it helps us make sense of it all. And that's why I've always been a fan of, you know, a good storytelling, or however it's provided, right? Like you can even tell a story through music, or you know, a movie, obviously, or a book, or a game, and all. And it's because a lot of the things that I've gone through in life, I've made sense of it a lot through art, you know, in a lot of different ways, shapes, or forms. And and so I appreciate this game for what it did, and I hope we get more of this kind of stuff. I hope that this game, the success of this game, you know, and if it ends up winning Game of the Year and all, that it'll show the industry that these things are still important, and it sold well too. Maybe it's not the big, huge moneymaker the way, like, you know, like a live service game can be and all that, but it still sold well. And let's bring art back. Let's bring passion back to the art that is produced out there, especially with the rise of AI and everything. That these kind of things are still important because it resonates very deeply and profoundly within a lot of us. But anyways, that's just what I wanted to say on it. Sort of like my thoughts, right? 2 days after or whatever it was, after I beat the game and all of that. There's just a lot of thoughts that have been lingering in my head. I just wanted to talk about for a bit, and definitely I would definitely would recommend the game, and for sure. It's not perfect. It's there's the issues that I still have with it are still definitely there, but it is a very powerful piece of artwork, and for that I highly recommend it.